All right. Thank you for joining us. Super excited to see the wide range of folks that are joining us today from all over. My name is Katie Rush. I am a Senior Client Success Manager here at Formative. And we are going to rock through a whole bunch of updates that have been coming out at you fast and furious over the last month. Some of them we're going to go really in depth and show you how it works. Some of them are much more visual, so we're just going to kind of touch on them. But we should have time at the end for questions. But please feel free to drop questions in the chat. I do have it up in front of me. And so I promise I'll come back to them at the end if I have not touched on them already. All right, so we're going to run through a bunch of quick updates, and then there's some bigger updates that I do want to show you and talk through in a little more detail. Microsoft Teams is a big one, so I'll highlight that just a bit. You can create a class now from the dashboard, which is awesome. We have some much needed tracker updates that are going to make it so much easier for you to find what you need when you need it. And then finding standards is now so much simpler. I can't wait to show you these. Okay, here we go. Our really quick updates. Video length. Now, if you are recording a video or your students are recording a video, that is now 10 minutes long. It is no longer 2 minutes. Your students and you also have 10 minutes to record your video. And if your students are recording on their end, they also get 10 minutes. Super, super exciting. Time extensions. So if you've started using this accommodation for your students, what it is it allows students to have extra time if you are using a timer within your class or your formative. So in this case, I have students here, and they have a 2.5 time limit here. I can now edit this on an individual formative. So if I was to assign to this class, I could now edit this time limit for a particular formative for this student. So if you for some reason they get less of a time extension on certain types of assignments, you can now make that adjustment as you're assigning. So you can have that blanket cover here with the accommodation for everybody, and then adjust as necessary when you're assigning. So that's super exciting. Google avatars now come through. So if you are syncing with Google and you have your students have Google avatars, or they've uploaded a really cool picture, that now comes over to Formative. I don't think I have any really awesome ones that came through here, but I'm sure your students have come through. Yep, you can see some of the other ones that we have here for our teachers who have popped through with this. So definitely check out your students. If you synced with Google, you may want to resync and see what kind of student avatars they've come through with here. So that's exciting. Gives them a chance to be a little more personal for your students. You can now add answers from multiple students at once to your answer key. So as you are moving through a formative, if you have student answers that are correct and you need to add them to your answer key, let me run through here real quick. If I have student answers that I need to add to an answer key, I can now add multiple students' answers to my answer key at once here. Okay. So definitely take a look through that, play with that, and you can add your answers to the answer key. Makes it a lot easier for you. You don't have to save, you don't have to spend so much time building your answer key. This one, I know my upper and middle school teachers are going to be really excited about. We no longer have the middle finger emoji on formative, so no longer are your students going to be able to use that option if they are commenting or using emojis. That is no longer on our platform. Our previous and next buttons. So when students are in teacher pace mode or in single question mode, those previous and next buttons were up at the top. They're now down at the bottom, where it makes a little more sense as students are working through questions and content blocks. Those buttons are now at the bottom of the screen. So when they finish, it's right where their eyes are. A green dot presence indicator. What this means is that in your View Responses tab, you can now see, and let me zoom in here, you will see a green dot next to your students avatars when they are using or on that formative. So if they are working through this formative, I will see a little green dot here for them. And that lets me know that they are active on that formative at that time. So great way to help with tracking engagement when folks are on or not on a formative. Helpful for students who may not be in person that day for you. So lots of implications here on ways that having that indicator button can be a really easy way for you to track students as they're working through the formative. Yes, student with a teacher account. I know because we get this all the time in our help center and our chat option. Students end up with teacher accounts. It happens all the time. Now, if you go to add a teacher or a student that has a teacher account into a class, it will give you a notification. So if I go in here and I go to add myself because I have a teacher account, it will give me a notification. And it's not going to work because I am a formative employee, but it'll give you a little notice here that says this person has a teacher account, and it will give you a prompt with how to take care of that for your students so that you can remove them from a teacher account and give them a student account so you don't have to worry about any syncing issues or anything on that front. So definitely take a look. You'll know now if you're adding students that have teacher accounts. It gives you a little bubble. Okay, and now the big one, all the visual updates. You've seen from your homepage here, we've cleared this up. It's now all white. There's not as many different colors and blocks of colors here to make it really easy for you to see everything you need to see. These visual updates are coming from a place of trying to adjust for accessibility. And so there will be more updates that come down the line that make our platform more accessible for people online. And so that's where those updates are coming from. We also have a grid here now that was not always there. And we have that grid that's showing up in the View Responses tab as well. So lots of places here where those visual changes are made. And I know they were kind of an abrupt visual change, but just so that you give a little background, that's where that's coming from. One of the other places we had a little bit of a visual update for you. Let me drop into here. This preview button is now no longer an eyeball. It is just a preview. It says it here. It also does not take up the entire screen. So it makes it really easy for you to know whether or not people or what your formative is going to look like without totally covering up your edit screen. So you know whether you're in as a student or as a teacher. It makes it really clear. Right. The other place here is our customized headers. If you haven't played around with this before, these colors have recently changed. They're much darker, much richer colors. And so those have shifted recently. And you always have the option to upload a picture here in case you want to make it a little more customized for your students. You have those options within the customized header piece. So Microsoft Teams, if you have classes that are synced with Microsoft Teams, when you assign to those classes, you'll see once you've clicked assign, you have this join instruction box that pops up. Now there is an option here to share to your Microsoft Teams class. So it helps make that sharing process much smoother for you. You don't have to go through as many steps previously. It is now just a click within the join instructions. So we tried to make this a little bit simpler for you. And so if you have classes that have synced with Microsoft Teams, this is now how you can share your formatives to those classes. So this is a big update. Previously, we just had the option to sync classes with Microsoft Teams, and now we're working towards much more of a smooth process of sharing those formatives to those Microsoft Classroom teams. Yeah, so good question, Nellen. They asked, can a formative still be shared with people outside of your class, like giving a demo? if you are trying to share with someone outside of your class, so maybe you're using this for PD or you're trying to share with a demo, I'm going to suggest that is the only time you ever assign to guest students. That gives folks an option to participate with the formative and interact with it without having a student account. It's really the way that we do our PD. Whenever we have people working within formative as a student, we always assign it to guest students. That is really the only use case that we use guest students for, and really the only use case we suggest people using guest students for. All right, good question though. All right, so the next big piece is you can now create a section or a class from your dashboard. So please don't mind my very messy dashboard because I have lots of classes. You may have fewer than me and likely do. But if you come all the way over to the right-hand side of your dashboard, you'll see this little plus sign. This gives you the option to create your class right in your dashboard. So if you are working through maybe creating flexible groupings for your students, or you want to create a new class for a special project or something along those lines, you don't have to go through the classes tab and then do it here. You can create it right from this dashboard. Okay, and you have all the options that you would have within the classes tab. So just another place to kind of keep it simple depending on what your workflow looks like and being able to create what you need when you need it. All right. You can now filter standards by subject and by state or organization. So previously with standards, what you would have to do is you would have to search by state. So I'm going to look for Georgia here real quick. And then you'd have to scroll through all of this to find what you need. Now we have this beautiful search bar here at the top where you can type in whatever subject you're looking for and make that list much smaller, much shorter to find what you need from this space. So if you're looking for standards and that's always been a struggle, definitely come back and take a look and see if it's how that functions for you now. This is a huge update, especially for teachers who are trying to find certain sets of standards. This is going to make it a lot easier to find what you need. Great. Okay. So I'd like to spend the bulk of the rest of the time talking about the tracker, mainly because there's a couple of big changes to our tracker that I think is going to make finding the information you need a lot easier. All right. One of the things is the updates are really happening in the standards tab here. One of the things you can do is you can now search by formative. So if you want to look at a particular formative and see the standards attached to it, you can search by the name of that formative. So here's my standards formative. I can view the results and I can see my individual standards that are on this particular formative and how my students did on those standards. In this case, I only have one standard tagged to it, but this is a really great place for folks who are doing item analysis within a particular formative. This is an easy way to now narrow your focus to a particular to a particular formative that you've given your students and look at all of the standards that you've tagged within that formative. So what this is getting us to is that standards-based item analysis that I know so many folks are doing within their PLCs and within their content areas and grade levels. You're already doing a lot of this work. This update makes it easier for you to look at a common assessment that you've given to all of your students and be able to dive into a particular standard and see how your students did on that standard. So that's this formative update, or that's this formatives option up here in the top right-hand or left-hand corner. You can also clear it and see all of them. So if you do dive into an individual formative and you want to get back out, I'll show you how I did that again. You just hit this X and then hit view results. So that's a big functional update there. The second big functional update is this right here, this sort standards by. Previously, all the standards in this tracker were organized by most recent. So the most recent standards were over here on the left, and it went back in time as you went to the right. You now have the option to be able to sort standards alphanumerically. So that means if you are looking at a recording sheet or a grading sheet and you want to look through how students did on each of those standards, it makes it much easier for you to find the standards when there's multiple ones here. So now you'll see 2.1a or 2.10a comes before 2.13 because numerically 2.10 comes first, even if 2.13 was assessed before or more recently than 2.10. So this is something we've heard a lot, is that the organization of this tracker is a little bit counterintuitive to the way a lot of folks did their standards and organized their work after this. This now gives you the option to control how you're viewing your standards. Okay. You'll also see within the formatives tab on the tracker, again, this same option. You no longer have to worry about most recent here. If you're looking for a particular formative, you can sort it in whatever order you'd like. So whatever makes it easier to find what you need faster, that's what this update really is. So I know that was fast and furious, and I know we went through a lot of updates at the beginning. What questions do you have about any of the updates in general, things that have changed, you're not sure where to find certain things? I'm going to open it up kind of as a general questions at this point. So go ahead and drop them in the chat. If there's things that are popping up for you, you're not sure where to find certain things, definitely put it in the chat and let me know. If you're all set and you've heard your updates, you're good to go, I'm going to drop a survey in the chat for you. Just as a way for you all to get some certification credit or PD credit. If you fill out the survey, you will get a certificate at the end of the month from us that just has the amount of time that we were here, what the session was. So you have that for your records. Don't forget to fill out that survey, folks. It's short and sweet, I promise. It's very quick. And you'll get a nice certificate from us at the end of the month. Thank you all for coming. I'm happy to stay on and answer questions if you all have some, updates or otherwise. Yes, we are going to put this recording up on our training center and it should be up next week.